The officer's hand shot up like a wall in front of her, stopping her just as she stepped off the bank's marble steps. "Ma'am, hold it right there," he barked, his tone sharp, suspicious, already carrying the weight of accusation. The woman froze, her thin frame draped in a pale blue cardigan that hung loose on her shoulders. Her skin, deep brown and lined with years of resilience, seemed to tighten beneath the morning sun. Her small handbag dangled from her arm, the strap worn from decades of use. She had not stolen, she had not shouted, she had not broken a single law, but still 2 uniformed officers cornered her like she was prey. Her voice, soft but steady, broke the uneasy air. "Is there a problem, officer?" One leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "We got a call about suspicious activity. Cash withdrawals, lots of them. Matches your description." The weight of public silence wrapped around her. Passers-by slowed, glanced, and walked faster. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked. The air smelled faintly of exhaust from cars idling nearby, the sharp scent mingling with the faint sweetness of cut grass from the bank's landscaped edges. The woman stood alone, her body framed against polished glass doors that reflected her weary posture back at her. This was not the first time she had been doubted, not the first time her dignity had been tested, but she did not raise her voice. She simply adjusted her glasses, hands steady despite the tremor in her knuckles, and whispered, "I need to make a call." The officer scoffed, muttering under his breath, but she was already reaching into her bag. The phone looked oversized in her frail hand. As she pressed the numbers, her heart beat slow and sure. She wasn't calling a neighbor. She wasn't calling a friend. She was calling her son, the nation's highest prosecutor, the Attorney General of the United States. Yet in that tense moment, no one watching could know. They only saw an elderly woman, cornered outside a bank, treated like a criminal for daring to live quietly in her twilight years. She remembered other days, the back seat of buses that smelled of sweat and gasoline, the whites only sign she used to read aloud to herself, her young voice mixing defiance with despair. She remembered standing outside classrooms, books pressed to her chest, waiting for the day she'd be let in. She remembered her husband's funeral, the folded flag pressed into her shaking hands, the bugle's mournful cry tearing through the summer air. A soldier's widow, a mother who raised her children alone, a woman who never once demanded applause for surviving. Her back straightened under the invisible weight of history. The officers didn't see it, they only saw the present. An elderly black woman with too much cash, too many questions, and too little deference. One of them tried again. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us until we sort this out." The crowd had grown. Strangers glanced in her direction, but no one intervened. Their silence was louder than any accusation. A woman whispered to her companion, "Why don't they just let her go? She looks harmless." The words dissolved into the hot air, unheard by those who needed to hear them most. The woman didn't argue. She pressed her phone to her ear, and then she spoke, her words almost casual, but carrying the quiet force of destiny. "Hello, son. I'm outside the bank. 2 officers stopped me. They say I'm suspicious." Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried a storm. She let the silence that followed linger, long enough for the officers to feel its weight without understanding why. The younger officer shifted, uneasy. Something about her composure unsettled him. He had expected resistance, tears, maybe anger. Not this silence, not this stillness that seemed to call the world to attention. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. The sound of a siren somewhere in the distance cut through the thick summer air. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps approached, then another car, and another. The officers turned, confusion rippling across their faces as black SUVs rolled to a stop along the curb. Men and women in dark suits stepped out, their eyes sharp, their presence commanding. The air shifted. Respect, authority, power arrived without a word. And then he appeared, her son, tall, composed, carrying the quiet strength she had poured into him all his life. The Attorney General, his gaze swept the scene, first toward his mother, then toward the officers. He did not shout. He did not rage. He simply stepped forward, placed a hand on his mother's shoulder, and looked directly into the eyes of the man who had stopped her. "My mother," he said, his voice steady, "is the most honorable woman I've ever known. You stopped her because you saw suspicion where there was none. Because you forgot that respect is owed before it is earned. This will not be forgotten." The crowd hushed, shame rippling like a wave through those who had watched in silence. A woman in the back lowered her head. A man cleared his throat, wishing he had said something sooner. The elderly woman did not speak. She did not need to. Her silence was her weapon, her dignity her shield. The officers stammered apologies, their earlier arrogance collapsing under the crushing weight of recognition. But no apology could erase the truth of what had just been revealed. That behind the quiet grace of one elderly woman stood a history of sacrifice, resilience, and unshakable honor. The Attorney General guided his mother away, each step deliberate, a march of dignity reclaimed. People on the sidewalk, one by one, began to stand straighter. A man removed his hat. A young woman clutched her chest. Respect spread not through words but through silent recognition. And in that silence, her story became larger than herself. She was not just a woman who had been stopped outside a bank. She was every woman who had endured doubt, every man who had borne silent wounds, every citizen who had been asked to prove their humanity when it should never have been questioned. Her son's words lingered, destined to echo beyond that moment. Respect is owed before it is earned. By the time she reached the car, escorted gently by her son, she allowed herself the smallest smile, not of triumph, but of relief, of knowing that dignity, though tested, had not been broken. The crowd parted like a sea, some whispering apologies too late, others staring as if seeing her for the first time. The bank loomed behind her, a monument of wealth and suspicion, but she no longer stood in its shadow. She had carried herself through storms greater than this, through buses that did not welcome her, through funerals that tore her heart apart, through nights of hunger and days of endless work. This confrontation was only another reminder of what she had always known, that silence could be more powerful than rage. As the SUV door closed, she looked once more at the officers who had stopped her. Their faces were pale, their pride fractured. She did not hate them. She did not forgive them. She simply left them with their own reflection to wrestle with. The cars pulled away, leaving the street hushed. Only then did the onlookers begin to murmur, their words laced with awe, with shame, with the recognition of what they had just witnessed. Some stories are written in law books, some in history texts, but others are written in the quiet dignity of those who endure injustice without letting it stain their soul. And so her story ended not with raised voices, but with silence so profound it demanded respect. If you are hearing this now, let it be a reminder. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it walks in cardigans and soft shoes, carrying decades of unseen battles. Sometimes it waits for the moment to reveal its truth.